Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
And that was Golden Glenn, the official announcer of the Home Defense Show, and I'm your host, Skip Coryell. Author of 22 books, Marine Corps veteran, founder of the Second Amendment March, proud father of 7, grandfather to 19 and counting, and as a special bonus, I'm also madly in love with my own wife. My priorities in life are God, family, and country in that order, and I hereby promise to never compromise in my convictions. I may go broke, but I'll never go woke. And joining me today is my faithful co-host and adoring wife, Sarah Coryell. Sarah, welcome back.
Thank you, Skip. It's great to be here again.
Sarah, you seem real busy these days, getting ready for Christmas and things.
Yeah, we have a wonderful family. There's a lot of people in it.
That's putting it mildly. There are definitely a lot of people. The Bible always referred to that as many arrows in your quiver.
We have a very large quiver,
Children are an asset. They're expensive, but they're an asset.
but it makes for a lot of things to do.
I love Christmas. I'm not real fond of the snow, but I do love Christmas. I love it a lot. All right, well, Sarah, let's get right into it. What do we have coming on the show today?
First, we'll speak with Terry Johnson about what it's like to be a criminal self-defense attorney. And we'll also talk about the Daniel Penny homicide case. Then we'll discuss a self-defense scenario in our shootingclasses.com self-defense report with Hilton Jackson about how to handle arguments in a parking lot.
Well, before we get too far into the show, let's thank our sponsors, United States Concealed Carry Association, shootingclasses.com, and Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. And now it's time for our Home Defense Show Quotes of the Week. All right, Sarah, if you don't mind, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
All right, this is one of my favorites. Strange, isn't it? Each man's life touches so many other lives. When he isn't around, he leaves an awful hole, doesn't he? Do you know where that's from?
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. Strange, isn't it? Each man's life touches so many others. Yeah, it really does. I mean, when you think about a random person, anyone who's in your life, and if they weren't there, how would that change your life? Not just your life, but everyone else that's around them. It would change their life.
It's really hard to imagine that because it just connects to so many other people. And
Well, it could be for good or for ill. I mean, if you have someone abusive in your life,
yeah, but you don't know what would be there if they weren't there.
that's true. We don't have a crystal ball that we
Mhm.
look into, but certainly there are people in my life that if they hadn't been there, it may have been a good thing.
Yeah. But God uses all the things, the bad and the good. He somehow makes something beautiful out of everything.
Well, folks, just think about that for a little bit. The people in your lives and how important they are. So, Sarah, what's your quote this week?
My quote is from William Shakespeare, a play called Measure for Measure. I didn't actually know about this play, but I found the quote and I had to look up where it came from. It says, "Virtue is bold and goodness never fearful."
I like that. That could have been one of my quotes.
It could have been.
That sounds more like me than you.
Well, we're
I
married.
think we've swapped things around.
This week, I think,
You're
yeah.
more of a Clarence the Angel kind of guy. I think that your quote from this week probably ties in with our Home Defense Show Hero of the Week. So tell us about the Home Defense Show Hero of the Week.
You're going to like this one, folks, because our hero this week is a Marine Corps veteran, and he's none other than Daniel Penny from New York City.
You know, I am partial to Marine Corps veterans. You can probably guess why. Semper Fi to all my Marine buddies out there. Sarah, why don't you go ahead and tell us about Daniel Penny?
Okay. Daniel Penny makes an astounding statement about his actions on Subway after jury acquittal. Marine veteran Daniel Penny said that he could not have lived with himself if he had avoided taking action on the subway after Jordan Neely threatened passengers. Penny made the comments on Fox News after he was acquitted in the controversial case from New York City. Some black activists have accused him of racism, but others have praised him for stepping in when Neely, a homeless, schizophrenic man, screamed that he wanted to kill people. Penny addressed the attention he has received and then added that he would have done it again to protect people. "I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. This type of thing is really uncomfortable. All of this attention in my mind is very uncomfortable, and I would prefer without it. I didn't want any type of attention or praise, and I still don't. The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, I would never have been able to live with myself, Penny added. I'll take 1,000,000 court appearances just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed. Penny had been charged with manslaughter as well as criminally negligent homicide, but a jury said its members were deadlocked on the first charge and then issued a verdict of not guilty on the second charge. Neely had also taken synthetic marijuana before threatening to kill people on the subway.
What do you think about that, Sarah?
I am so very grateful that Daniel Penny was brave and virtuous and good and did the right thing.
But you think he was brave, virtuous, and good. Not everyone agrees with you on that one.
They might have ulterior motives because I really think if they were there being threatened by that person, they would feel differently.
What really strikes me about this is I can relate to this guy. People who have never been in the military don't understand this as well. But when you're in the military, they change you, especially in places like the Marine Corps, Army Rangers, Special Forces types, right? They change you in that they bring out that warrior aspect of your personality. And I think most people have that lying latent somewhere down inside them, but it's never really bubbles to the surface unless it's fostered like a seed that grows, right? But in the Marines, they don't really teach you to back down from
There's no retreat. That's
no,
total.
no, it's like that quote from Chesty Puller, Colonel Chesty Puller, he's surrounded, in Korea in Chosin Reservoir. They're on our left, they're on our right, they're in front of us, they're behind us. They can't get away now. That's more the attitude. And they preach that in the Marines, and they just build you up so that when you face conflict, the fight or flight mechanism, we don't really have a flight mechanism. It's more of a fight mechanism. But this guy, Daniel Penny, he was very virtuous. He put himself on the line, injected himself into something that was potentially dangerous to other innocent people. And for me, I believe that I have the moral responsibility to protect and defend other innocent people. And if I don't do that, then I'm either selfish or I'm a coward. And
Complicit. Some of the people who stand around and take pictures while other people are getting hurt,
yeah,
you're complicit.
yeah, that's a good way to put it, Sarah. I like Daniel Penny. The guy is awesome, and we're going to talk about him more in segments 2 and 3 with criminal self-defense attorney Terry Johnson, because he's got some opinions on it too that I think are worthwhile. One of the things that I've noticed over the past 5 years or so is that the far left will take people like this Neely fellow and try and turn him into something that he's not. They try and make him the hero when he's really just a, mentally ill person, schizophrenic, a drug user, violent. It seems to be 180 degrees out of phase. This is the bad guy,
Yeah.
and that they're trying to turn him into a victim and a hero. And Daniel Penny, the good guy, the hero who did something to try and save people, is being demonized by the far left.
I accused him of criminally negligent homicide.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Well, when in reality he should be given a medal.
Yeah.
I think that when Donald Trump gets into office, he might give this guy a medal. It would
Huh?
not surprise me a bit.
That would be a beautiful
And I think that
shift
would encourage other good people
to stand
to
up.
stand up and say, hey, I will protect and defend. Because, this show, it's all about the protector defender lifestyle.
Yep. But when they do this to people who protect and defend other people, it's like, I don't have money to defend myself in court.
Exactly. But if you have United States Concealed Carry Association, you've got.
Coverage.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. Well, Sarah, enough of that. What do we have coming up?
All right, coming up next, we'll speak with Terry Johnson about what it's like to be a criminal self-defense attorney, as well as his opinion on the recent Daniel Penny trial outcome. Then we'll discuss a self-defense scenario in our shootingclasses.com self-defense report with Hilton Jackson about how to handle arguments in a parking lot.
In the meantime, God bless and stay safe, because we will be right back.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
At Center Shot Gun Range, we are passionate about training. Don't know where to start? We offer a 1-hour new shooter seminar to introduce you to the world of firearms and help you find training opportunities specific to you. Concealed carry, home defense, firearm safety, AR-15, private one-on-one training, custom training, or maybe you're on a security team looking to protect your church or business. We even offer weekday morning and evening classes. Center Shot Gun Range has you covered. Start your journey at centershotgunrange.com.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
The mere sound of his voice makes women swoon and men storm the gates of hell. Welcome back to the Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
And that was the beautiful and sultry voice of Golden Glenn, the official announcer of the Home Defense Show. Folks, we live in a dangerous world, and I want you to be able to protect and defend the ones you love. And that's why I have this show. It's my way of empowering you to accomplish one of your primary jobs in life. You are a protector and a defender. All right, listeners, before we get too far into the show, don't forget to check out our sponsors, United States Concealed Carry Association, shootingclasses.com, and Center Shot Indoor Gun Range for all your training and equipment needs. Without our sponsors, this show wouldn't be on the air, so we thank you all. And now, I'd like to welcome a good friend of mine, Attorney Terry Johnson, to the show. Terry, you're a longtime friend. You're an excellent self-defense attorney and a staunch advocate of the right to keep and bear arms. So, Terry, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thank you so very much. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Skip. And like we were talking before, I'm glad it's radio and not over cameras. That way, we don't have to look at each other.
Well, this is radio, so you can say anything you want to about your looks. You can say, "Hey, I'm 6'4". I'm good looking, eloquent, and no one will know the difference."
Well, yeah, that's true. You're right, but yeah, but no,
Just
Skip,
don't
it's
say it
always,
under oath.
there you go. It's always a pleasure to be on with you, and thank you for having me back.
All right. Well, Terry, first, where do you practice law? What's the name of your business?
Well, it's the law office of Terry L. Johnson, located in the state of Michigan. However, if need be, we will definitely look to take self-defense cases outside of the state of Michigan. We do self-defense and all other criminal matters as well.
Ah, that fascinates me. I mean, I study crime, self-defense, all of that because, of what I teach, pistol tactics and concealed carry and all of that. So it fascinates me. The criminal mind fascinates me. Society fascinates me. All of this stuff. But I sometimes I wonder, being a criminal defense attorney, what are the good parts and what are the bad parts?
Well, that's a great question. The good parts are you really get to help people that are in need. Sometimes when we think of a criminal defense attorney, we think of someone, hey, they just got me off of something, or they got this guy off of this thing, or the guy's guilty or whatever. But the good part is not every client is guilty, and it's up to the state to meet their burden. And in a lot of cases, they can't, and the state actually takes advantage of law-abiding citizens, whether it's for political reasons, whether it's for social reasons, or other reasons that may not even be known to us. So your criminal defense attorneys are really what stands between you and a overzealous prosecution.
This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. We're speaking with self-defense attorney Terry Johnson. Terry, what cases come to mind right away where you think people maybe were wrongfully prosecuted?
Well, I'll tell you, a good friend of mine and a good friend of yours, Attorney Dean Greenblatt, who's also out of the Metro Detroit area. Um, we had a case in Hillsdale where it was clear as day that this was a Hillsdale County, Michigan. Um, it was clear as day that this was self-defense. There was not a, um, you know, doubt in anyone's mind. But now all of a sudden you've got again, overzealous prosecutor that is looking to move up in the world, to become the elected prosecutor. You've got a police force that hasn't dealt with a homicide in over 40, 50 years. So you've got some nuances there. And, the big thing is you have a situation where you have a 66-year-old man who defended himself against three young boys, ages 14, 14, and 16. And you start bringing all of that together, justice looks a lot different to the person, whether it's a prosecutor, whether it's the police, whether it's our client, or whether it's the victim's family. Justice looks different to each of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Some things that I don't totally understand. There's a lot I don't understand about the criminal justice system, but plea bargains.
Mhm.
How do plea bargains work? How often are they used? Are they misused? What's your opinion?
That's a great question, and what's the purpose of it? A lot of times people look at a situation and they'll say, I'm never going to plead guilty to something I didn't do. And the purpose of a plea is to really put some things into perspective. Sometimes the people, for example, the state, the prosecutor, may not have the best of charges going against you, but they're willing to drop it down so that they don't have to go through the expense of trial. Because sometimes you get people, juries, when they say it's a jury of your peers, gotta hope some of these people are not my peers, to be honest with you, because they don't truly think and act the way that we would want them to act. For example, you get some people that might be a little more left leaning. You've got some people that are anti-gun. You've got some people that believe that, don't believe in, let's say, stand your ground or self-defense. So, you start looking at this and you start weighing to yourself, what's best for me? Should I take a low-level crime like a misdemeanor and walk away? Or do I want to roll the dice and potentially lose everything? Even though I'm right, do I want to potentially be in prison for the rest of my life? Do I want to lose my wife, my family, my quality of life just because I think I'm right? And you might be right, but I've watched many people turn down some exceptional plea offers to end up, going forward and being found guilty.
Oh, wow. So
And,
about how,
well, let
go
me
ahead.
just say this, and I'm sure someone in your audience right now is saying, well, you must not be a very good attorney then if you can't, see what's out there, but you've got to remember, not everyone thinks like you. And what I mean by that is, again, not everybody believes in the Second Amendment. Not everybody believes in the right to defend yourself or the right to stand your ground. So you don't get 12 people on the jury that absolutely positively think the way that you think.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Terry, we're out of time for this segment. When we come back, though, I'd like to talk about the Daniel Penny case that just concluded, because that seems like a fascinating one, and I have a personal interest in that one. So when we come back, we'll talk about that one. But during the break, I want you to get your lazy butt off the couch and do some sit-ups. Strengthen that core, because we all know that a healthy, fit person fights better and is harder to kill. God bless and stay safe. We will be right back.
Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If this sounds good to you, you sound good to me. And I'd like to help you do those things. Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If you're looking for more excitement in your life, we have nothing to offer you. But if you are a thoughtful, responsible, nonviolent man or woman, we'd love to teach you what to do if something crazy happens. More importantly, we'd like to teach you what not to do. We currently have over 500,000 members. They are doctors and single moms and firemen and grandmothers and veterans and Democrats and Republicans and members of every faith. But the one thing they all have in common is that they know exactly what to do if something crazy happens. When you're with one of our members, you are safe. Our members know how to de-escalate situations. They know how to calm things down. We are the United States Concealed Carry Association. See what we're all about at usconcealedcarry.com.
Discover the little-known backstory of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association at usconcealedcarry.com.
Liberals hate him, small children fear him, but God keeps on loving him anyway. Welcome back to the Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell. And now let's continue our conversation with self-defense attorney Terry Johnson. All right, Terry, I've been watching this Daniel Penny case. What do you have to say about the Daniel Penny case?
Skip, I have been following that case. Again, going back to what we were talking about in the previous segment, the problem isn't whether he acted in self-defense or not. You've got three other factors you really need to consider. You need to consider the political environment. In this case, you have a very aggressive anti-gun district attorney who went after this case, in my opinion, for no reason. There's no reason to go after this other than maybe he tried to trump up some charges and just wanted to keep his name out there. Then you've got the social environment, which is a whole nother issue. To me, race was not an issue in this. The person who ended up being killed happened to be black, but if he was white, if he was Hispanic, if he was Asian, his actions is what brought us to this conversation today. But however, the issue is they made this about race. So now you've got the social aspect that's in this. And finally, the bigger thing is you're always going to have some other sliver that somebody looks at this and talks about self-defense and stand your ground. And as I remember this case and what I listened to during the testimony, I want to say just about everybody, maybe 10 out of 12, maybe even 11 out of 12, talked about how they were afraid on that subway car and how Mr. Penny, they were grateful for what he did. And here's a man that literally told you what he did. He didn't do it with a lawyer next to his side. Again, I would not advise that under any circumstances, but he did it without a lawyer by his side. He was very forthright. Matter of fact, they even let the guy go home. It wasn't until the social outrage that came about that the DA, who I believe is up for election this upcoming year, came forth and said, oh, we got to charge this guy. If you go back to this, again, going back to what we said in the previous segment, they couldn't come to a decision on the highest count. That's kind of scary. Even though you have witnesses who sat there and said, he did the right thing, thank you for protecting us, you still have people who looked at this and said, you shouldn't do this. When you talk about protecting yourself, we as firearm owners and advocates of self-defense and personal protection, I don't want to say we think differently, but it's not our intent to go out and kill someone. It's our intent to stop the threat. Sometimes that threat ends in death, unfortunately. And a lot of people don't see that. They see someone has died and they don't understand the actions of either person. And that's what causes a huge void in where we're going in this country.
So in hindsight, did he make any mistakes, Daniel Penny, as far as his interaction with the police, what he did on the subway? Is there something that you would advise him to do differently if you had a crystal ball and you knew what was going to happen?
Well, the only thing I would, and I've said this before, and Skip, you and I have had lots of conversations about this, I would never make a statement to the police without my attorney present. I was with the Michigan State Police last night with a client, and the interesting thing is he said to me, wow, I did nothing wrong, but they really made me feel like I was guilty. They made me feel like, I was the bad guy in this. And he wasn't. And we have a tendency to want to explain things. And sometimes when we go too deep into an explanation, it opens other doors. So to answer your question, first of all, talking to the police without an attorney, never ever do that. I don't care how innocent you are, that's never a good thing. As far as his actions, obviously, there would be anything different that he could have done. When he released the decedent there, the guy was still alive, but people want to neglect the fact that he had drugs in his system, he had psychotic issues, and Mr. Penny was just doing this, not just protection of himself, but everyone else.
This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. We're speaking with self-defense attorney Terry Johnson about the Daniel Penny case. How does this different, if it is different, than say, the George Floyd case or maybe the George Zimmerman case? Are there differences?
Well, yeah, number one, if you look at this particular case, this was self-defense of others. You start looking at Zimmerman, this was self-defense of himself. George Floyd, and I would urge your viewers, your listeners, I should say, get an opportunity to go to YouTube and look at the fall of Minneapolis. It's an hour documentary on what really happened that day in Minneapolis and how the media really took things over and portrayed something different. So you guys get an opportunity, please go look at that. It'll give you a completely different perspective on what happened that day. But as it relates to George Floyd, that was law enforcement that was involved. It wasn't a citizen. So that's how those three differentiate from each other.
And that makes sense. Something that just occurred to me while you were talking. I'm a reserve police officer, and I had to go through a reserve training academy. And one of the things that we had to learn was how to interrogate suspects, right? And I remember being very surprised when they gave me a class on how to lie to the person that I'm interrogating. That really surprised me because I always thought police officers were not allowed to lie, that there was a higher standard for them because, they're the good guys. But that's not the way that it works. So talk about that for a second.
The interesting thing is the Supreme Court of the United States has basically given permission to law enforcement to basically lie. They can tell you something that doesn't have to be true. They can tell you that, we got you on video doing X, Y, and Z. And you may say, okay, yeah, I did it. And it turns out there is no video. Or this witness is going to say X, Y, and Z, and there is no witness. This is a technique that basically is used, a line that will basically allow someone to fall into a trap and incriminate themselves.
Prior to becoming a concealed carry instructor, if I had been stopped or arrested or detained or whatever, as a regular citizen, I wouldn't have had a clue. I would have answered any question that any police officer asked me because I just grew up believing, okay, yeah, they're the good guys, and they are the good guys, but I didn't understand that the rules were different for them than they were for me. And when they say, anything you can and say, can be used against you in a court of law, they're serious about that. It really can.
Well, I want you to think about something for a moment. Notice what you just said, can and will be used against you, not for you. I can say 99 times, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. But if I say one time I did it, guess what's going to be in that report? It's going to be, I did it. And they're going to charge me and move forward with that. So you're absolutely right. People don't really understand the magnitude of that because, again, we've all grown up. Hey, law enforcement is our friend. That's great until you are in the mix and they are charging you or looking at you a little bit differently.
Terry, we are out of time already. Time flies when you're having fun, and I'm certainly having fun. But hey, I want to thank you for your expertise. One more time, where can people get a hold of you if they need some legal representation?
The law office of Terry L. Johnson here in Michigan, and feel free to reach out, call, and we are here to help you in any way we can with any matter that you have where you are being accused of a crime, whether it's self-defense or even a speeding ticket.
Terry, thank you for being on the Home Defense Show today.
Skip, it's always a pleasure. And
All right. This is Skip Coriel on Home Defense Show. Coming up next, we'll be speaking with Hilton Jackson from the great state of Texas as we get some expert advice on the details of self-defense in our shootingclasses.com self-defense report. All right, folks, now it's time to inspect your everyday carry gun to make sure it's safe and in good working order. So triple check to make sure it's unloaded and fill strip it down and give it a good cleaning. And finish it off with a light coat of oil to prevent rust. God bless and stay safe. We will be right back.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
At Center Shot Gun Range, we are passionate about training. Don't know where to start? We offer a 1-hour new shooter seminar to introduce you to the world of firearms and help you find training opportunities specific to you. Concealed carry, home defense, firearm safety, AR-15, private one-on-one training, custom training, or maybe you're on a security team looking to protect your church or business. We even offer weekday morning and evening classes. Center Shot Gun Range has you covered. Start your journey at centershotgunrange.com.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
He's old, he's cranky, his back hurts, and he can't remember where he put his car keys. But his mother still loves him. Welcome back to the Home Defense Show with Skip Coriel.
And that was a beautiful and sultry voice of Golden Glenn, the official announcer of the Home Defense Show, and I'm your host, Skip Coriel. Don't forget to check out our sponsors, United States Concealed Carry Association, shootingclasses.com, and Center Shot Indoor Gun Range for all your training and equipment needs. And now it's time for our weekly self-defense report, sponsored by shootingclasses.com. And today we're speaking with firearms instructor Hilton Jackson from the great state of Texas. Hilton, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thank you, sir.
Hilton, where do you train out of? What's the name of your school?
So I own my own training company. It's called Gideon Training Solutions.
Hilton, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to read part of an article here, and then you are going to just kind of break it down for us, and we'll just bat it back and forth here, okay?
Sounds good.
One charged with murder after argument leads to shooting in Tyler, Texas. A suspect is in custody after police were called to a business in Tyler where they found one person shot. Scotty Lee Goebel, age 54, of Frost, Texas, has been charged with first-degree murder after Heriberto Ramirez, age 38, of Tyler, was shot to death. The incident happened at a business after an argument between several people. Police said the incident may have begun in the business, but mainly took place outdoors. Ramirez's brother owns the restaurant Junior's Taco. Goebel is a repeat customer. The single shot was most likely from a handgun. Goebel has been booked into the Smith County Jail on a $500,000 bond. What's your initial impression on this one, Hilton?
Because the details in the initial article is a little fuzzy about exactly what led to this altercation, but as you sort of flush it out, there apparently was some sort of a disagreement inside of the establishment that spilled over into the parking lot. In that parking lot, there seems to have been some fisticuffs, right? Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, someone drew a firearm and someone was shot. Really not necessarily clear from the first article. The second article, as you mentioned earlier, provides a little bit more context about potentially what happens, but it's still from I would say a singular person's point of view, or with a little bit of collaboration. When you think of an argument, between gentlemen inside of a store, what have you, spills out outside, there were also kids on the premises as well with we'd call him the defendant at this point, who were also with him. And so in that altercation, it doesn't mention anything from the standpoint of whether or not the kids were in any sort of jeopardy. However, the defendant felt as if at some point his life was in jeopardy and he fired his handgun. But as you read a little further into the details, it states that he was on the ground and the victim was several feet away, which raises several other questions.
Yeah.
Some of the initial things that I think about, which don't necessarily change the outcome, but did the gentleman or the victim, where was he shot? Was he shot facing, the defendant? Was he shot facing away from him, meaning that he was shot in the back? What was that distance? Because when you think of the context of immediate threat or immediate danger, if this gentleman was several feet away from you, that raises a question.
You're right. The details are kind of sketchy, and they usually are when these things first come out, because this was like 3 weeks ago. We don't have anything in the last 3 weeks. I couldn't find anything else online as far as an update, probably because, when things are going through the legal process, police have a tendency to say, we're not going to tell you many details because we're in an ongoing investigation. And then you find out 6 months later in court what really happened. It always amazes me because I talk to firearms instructors from all over the country, right? And for example, if this had happened in say New York City, man, it's like, go straight to jail, do not collect $200, don't, you don't pass go, you don't do anything, right?
Right.
In Texas, I mean, I watched a video of that Houston taqueria where a guy came in and was robbing the place.
Yes, sir.
And I watched that video and I'm thinking, if he'd have done that in my home state of Michigan or a lot of other places, he would have been charged, he'd have been thrown in jail, and I just couldn't believe it. So a lot of it depends on where you are, what jurisdiction you're in, what kind of jury you're going to get. There are some sketchy things about this. It's like the police, they arrested him, he bailed out, but he was charged. That kind of tells me in Texas, if you're charged with murder, I would take it more seriously than, if it happens in New York City, like the Daniel Penny case, right?
Sure.
It's like, you sneeze on somebody, you get charged with murder. But in Texas, they're a lot more gun friendly. So what do you think about that?
It's definitely interesting, but it also could be simply the ideology of due process, right? And so, granted, there was violence, there was a firearm was displayed, and the round was fired, and so subsequently that man lost his life, and so with that, either the police feel like there was more to the story, and as you mentioned, they are not really disclosing these sort of the full details. But what was interesting as I continue to read, even the gentleman or the defendant, Mr. Gobble's sons, admitted that he was on the ground, and I would say the deceased was several feet away. So there was some corroboration to that part, which still leads to as to whether or not we talking stand your ground or self-defense. We don't know the full details of how he landed on the ground, but let's say it was because of the altercation. Now, in that you're on the ground, or I think we're leaving out another piece of this. There was supposedly a threat made to Mr. Gobble, specifically towards him and the infant that was in the baby carriage. And so, based on that alone, even the threat, the escalation of the firearm doesn't meet that level, right? From a standpoint of a simple threat. And so I'm poking holes trying to sort of really ascertain as to why he was released. But again, maybe it was just a process, the ideology of simple due process.
Yeah, I agree with you. There was a little bit of an age disparity. The victim was 38,
Correct.
the shooter was 54. That can make a difference.
Yes, sir.
Not all 54-year-olds are created equal, but
Yes, sir.
without having a picture, we really don't know if that was a factor at all.
Correct.
I guess one thing that really dawned on me, the biggest thing, was that when someone asks you, "Hey, let's take it outside in the parking lot and handle it like men," I would say, "No, thank you. Let's stay in here inside, and I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to play that game.
I think, as a person that will carry a firearm, there's a level of accountability, right? So at that particular moment, perhaps only he knew he was the person that was carrying a firearm, right? And so some of this could easily dwindle down into a pride scenario. Let's say, right? Let's remove the age barrier. Let's remove everything else. And you get into fisticuffs with a gentleman and he gets the advantage of you in front of your kids.
Oh, yeah. Ego.
And, right. The pride and the ego says, I cannot let that stand. Right. So we can't put ourselves into his mindset with regards to what his actions were. But oftentimes that could come up, be a factor. And so there's a lot of things that are still unanswered, but you have to have a different level of accountability if you're going to carry a firearm. And really, your ultimate goal, number one, is to go home, right? And so the other gentleman, the establishment owner's brother, I don't think he would have gone out if he knew the gentleman had a firearm. But in Texas, you would really assume that everybody has a gun.
Yeah, that's right.
So the mindset of let's go out and handle it out, out in the parking lot, leave it alone, right? Maybe you lose a customer for life, but you go home at the end of the day. And so there's ego and pride on both sides of this conversation. If we'll be honest, right? The ego to say, well, let's take it outside, right? Because we're having a dispute about an order that we either went wrong or right or indifferent. And let's take it outside. And the other end of that is, okay, this guy got the best of me in front of my kids. Now I need to handle that. And it's a level of trauma that neither family will ever be able to get beyond.
You're right. Well, hey, Hilton, we are out of time. Good analysis. Before we go again, please tell us again where people can learn more about you.
I own a company called Gideon Training Solutions. I'm online, all things firearm.
Well, Hilton, I want to thank you for being on the Home Defense Show today. Great analysis. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, folks, this is Skip Coriel on Home Defense Show, and that about wraps it up for this week's show. I've had a good time, and I hope you have too. Please don't forget to thank our sponsors, CenterShot Indoor Gun Range at centershotgunrange.com, shootingclasses.com to help you find the right trainer for your needs, and the United States Concealed Carry Association. All right, folks, I've written 20-plus books, and they're all available on Amazon.com in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. This week, check out my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. Please join us again next week for all your home defense needs. In the meantime, God bless and stay safe.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!